What is a scary, unsettling fact about you? For the first story we've got, odds are I'll be dead in less than 3 years. I don't plan to be, but the odds are stacked against me. I think about that every single day. Cancer sucks. Next story is, I'm convinced with no evidence that my father is still alive and my whole family is lying to me. I logically know that he's not. But every knock on the door, I open half expecting my father. It could be something to work through, but it's really affecting me day to day. My grandfather died, and I thought I would feel the same way. Nope, he's dead. I miss him, but he's dead. I am one of the lucky few with the CCRS Delta 32 mutation. Why is that relevant? It makes me immune to HIV and a handful of other pathogens. Most notably, the freaking bubonic plague. I have 2 lenses in my right eye, so it focuses like binoculars. My doctor wrote a paper about it. Mostly blinded as a baby in my left eye. The doctor suspected my right lens split, then healed as 2 distinct lenses. It's better than 20/20 in my right eye. When I was born, I was so premature that my dad, who had quite dainty piano fingers, could slide his wedding ring up my arm to my shoulder. I weighed 2 pounds and I was born at 27 weeks. Less scary and more shocking. But when I was 9 years old, I survived a home invasion where I was shot 6 times. I played dead on the floor until the man left, and then I called 911 in my adrenaline rush. I thought I couldn't find my house, so I crawled with my left arm swinging the wrong way and my right leg limp from nerve damage, all the way to the front door when he broke in from the back of the house. I lived with only my mother, who unfortunately didn't survive. I wildly remember picking out the guy in a photo lineup while recovering in the ICU. I'm very lucky to have kept my arm. I have 13 pins and screws to make up for my shattered elbow. My left leg has permanent nerve damage, and I now have to drop foot. Despite my physical injuries and PTSD, I am doing very well. I have an enlarged aortic root. It's very unlikely, but it could spontaneously rupture, leading to the medical terms, adjust glasses, instantaneous death. I would pass out, bleed to death, and then fall over, dead before hitting the ground, and it could happen at any time. My wife is very uncomfortable thinking about it. My immune system backfired and tried to murder me and almost succeeded. I now have to take multiple injections every single day, all day, or I'll die a painful death within a week. Just trying to write diabetes in the most badass way. Oh, that's a good one. I got that too, but thankfully I'm working on overcoming it since I have the kind that you can overcome if you have a nice enough diet and work out enough. At least that's what I hear. Anyway, on to the next story. I do not actually remember a decent chunk of my life. Whenever I talk about most of my childhood, I use words that leave room for mistakes, and I'm generally using memories and ideas I've compiled from hearing other people say things about me. There's actually large chunks of facts about myself that I only think I know, and I don't have personal confirmation of. Growing up, I had a recurring nightmare set in my grandparents' backyard, looking at the back of their house. There was just something off about the house, something mildly sinister. I dreamt this over and over many times over the years. In 2018, my dad, who now owned the house, went into the backyard to that spot and killed himself. I haven't had the backyard dream ever since. I pooped in my neighbor's backyard when I was 8 years old. I just gargoyled under his jungle gym and let loose. This is the first time I've talked about it in over 20 years. I like the description, just gargoyling. I like that. I slept in my mom's bed until I was 12 years old. Everyone believed I was a mama's boy, including myself. It was actually because I shared a bedroom with my brother who molested me. I start therapy soon. Good luck with therapy, OP. that I woke up in the middle of surgery and threw a mayo pan at a nurse before they pinned me back down and upped my dosage of sedatives. The keynote still had retractors in, so I briefly looked like a Dead Space enemy. I have spotty memory of it. Sedation is very hit and miss with me. It has happened 3 times, once during surgery, once during a nerve burn. Never went out, just paralyzed for about 3 minutes and started speaking during the procedure. The last was during a colonoscopy. Seriously painful, and asked the doctor if he was an old scout leader, and he was laughing, and then asked the nurse if I was within range for another dose of sedatives. Edit. No, guys, I am not a redhead. I had 6 toes on each foot at birth, and got them cut off. You can see the place they cut them off at. They robbed you of the ability to run 20 times faster. Not 20 times, 20% faster. Sorry, that's a big difference if I didn't say that right. 20 times instead of just upping it by 20%? Oh god, he'd be the Flash. Anyway, when I was 18 years old, I was incarcerated for 3 years, found not guilty and acquitted on all charges. I had roughly 12 charges, some of which would have led to life in prison had I been found guilty. But I knew I was innocent and decided to fight my case. My best friend at the time was found guilty and given 3 life sentences. At one point, 1.5 years in, the DA offered me 7 years, and 2 felony strikes as a deal, or I could roll on my best friend and go home that same day. I passed and had to continue my fight, my case, as I knew they didn't have any solid evidence against me. As my parents ran out of money for an attorney, I was eventually appointed a state-appointed attorney who fought for me tooth and nail. He kicked ass and listened to everything I presented to him about why I wasn't guilty. Mind you, I was 18 and I was surrounded by grown men and saw some horrific shit. I kept in contact with my attorney afterwards and informed him that I was still doing well out here. He died a couple years ago. Now don't get me wrong, I was no saint. I was in a gang and running the streets and up to no good. But I wasn't guilty of these charges. A part of me felt that maybe it was the universe's way of slowing me down and helping me get my stuff together. It took a short while, but I've been on the right track. This February will be 20 years since I've been released. If you're enjoying these stories, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment with your own stories down below. Now let's get back to the stories. I'm an alcoholic. It's gotten so bad to the point that I was in jail and was admitted into a psych ward once. My drinking life was wild and destructive. I decided I'd had enough. After 2 failed attempts, I'm currently 36 days sober, the most sober I've been in years. I have unusually good night vision, extra cones and rods, which means I walk around what other people consider complete darkness, able to see just fine. Add on to that, I'm 6 foot 10 inches and very large. You can call me a cryptid because that's essentially what I am. I inherited a lot of money from my grandmother about 2 years ago that no one in my family knew existed. I still don't know where it came from. Her lawyer wouldn't tell me. But it's in the upper 7 figures. My father, her son, got the flat she owned, and we all thought that was everything she had. Apparently it wasn't, but I haven't told anyone about it, and I don't plan on doing so either. I just work a normal 8 to 5 desk job, rent a flat downtown of the city I live in. Nothing too expensive, and live a normal life on my own. No partner or children, no expensive vacations. I don't even have a car. I just don't feel comfortable sharing this secret, and the longer I keep, the stranger it would be not telling it. TLDR, I'm a millionaire because my grandmother died and no one knows about it. I don't know if scary or unsettling quite fits here, but if I met you 3 years ago, and then I haven't seen you since then, I will remember your name and several random things you told me. I've learned to play dumb and act like I don't remember certain things because it creeps people the heck out and gives off a stalkery vibe. Though it is useful when I want to screw with someone. My best friend tried to off me when I was 13, and I had to fight and disarm a classmate, menacing the class with an industrial nail gun when I was 17. My friends have a running joke that my teenage years were cursed. I have no will to live, and the only reason I'm still here is so I don't upset my family and friends. When I was 11, I witnessed my stepdad attack my mom. I was in my room and heard my mom yell and scream, so I left my room to see what happened. I stepped into the hallway. I could see partly into the kitchen, and she was standing with her back up against the corner of the countertop with a terrible look on her face and a swelling cheek. My stepdad was about 5 feet away with 3 long bleeding scratches down his cheek from where she retaliated. I guess I didn't know how to react, so I just turned around and went back to my room. That weekend, I spent Friday night at my best friend's house. I knew his older brother had a .38 Chief Special revolver in a hidden drawer he had built under the waterbed frame. Before I left, I stuffed the gun into my rolled-up sleeping bag. I chickened out the first night, but Sunday night, around 2 to 3 a.m., I think, I took the revolver into their room and woke him up by jamming it under his chin. He woke up immediately and kind of reactively pulled his head up, away from the barrel. I pushed it harder into his throat and said something like, "Don't ever hurt my mom again or I'll off you." I don't remember exactly what I did. I remember feeling like the world was spinning 1,000 miles per hour around me and that I was weightless. I don't remember anything after saying that to him until I was back in my room. I dropped the gun on the floor and burst into the hardest sobbing I have ever experienced. It seemed like it lasted for hours. I don't know how long I actually cried, but when I stopped, I was drenched in sweat and tears down my entire front side. I put the gun in my backpack and snuck it back into that drawer under the waterbed 2 or 3 days later. The next time I was at my friend's house. Not a word was ever said about what I did by me or my stepdad, but as far as I know, he never touched my mom again. They divorced 3 or 4 years later. I ran into my friend's brother at a bar around 10 years later. I told him about borrowing his gun, thinking he would just laugh it off, telling me drunk bar lies. He did not. He believed me completely. Even stated that sometimes I was at their house, I would make little comments that his family understood to mean that my home life wasn't great. He's a big biker type guy, and he just grabbed me, pulling me off the bar stool, and hugged me for like 5 straight minutes. He was a great dude. This all sounds overdramatic after reading it back to myself, but it's written exactly as I remember it. Thanks to for the chance to share this. Until now, my friend's brother and my stepdad were the only ones who ever knew about it. Sometimes I have memories of being naughtily abused or exploited as a young child, but I can't ever be sure if the memories are real, and I wouldn't dare ask anyone. Since I was very young, about 9 or 10, I've had thoughts that I was going to die young. The older I got, at the age 24, it just kept reoccurring. I'll be 24 in a few months. I have appointments for neurologists for a suspected brain tumor coming up. Nothing is certain or set, but this all feels very weird. I have a tendency to self-isolate. It's very damaged, very long-term friendships because people don't understand that it's not them, it's me, and I really mean no harm or have any ill feelings towards them. I just kinda want to recede into my own mind. I feel really bad about it and keep telling myself to reach out, but don't. I've had my appendix removed in England, so part of me is in Canada right now and another part of me is England. That's about all I got. And then somebody in the comments that's called the Northern Monkey's like, "We're keeping it safe, don't worry." My dog and mother died in the same year. I was so devastated when my dog passed. That kind of pain didn't even touch the pain of losing my mom. Partially because she had given up on me and life years before she died. She drank herself to death and got sepsis. My dad offed himself in '02. I'm 38 now. I miss them. I miss my dog more, however. She was always there for me, through so much illness and loneliness and pain. She was my best friend. I'm not sure if it's scary, but my dad overdosed on heroin and died. I probably could have saved him. I went downstairs at like 1 a.m. to get a drink, and the bathroom door closed with the light on. I thought about pounding on the door to scare him, which is something I would do to mess with him. I walked up to the door, went to knock, but thought to myself, nah, don't mess with him. And I walked away. Woke up later, finding out he was dead from an overdose. It's not your fault, OP. You didn't know he was overdosing in there. A third of my body is covered in burn scars. When I was 15, I was in a forest area near my school with several friends. We would go here often after school to talk and hang out and become before going home for supper. It was also common for us on colder days and to start a small fire to keep warm. Netherlands is a very wet country, so there's rarely a fear of fire getting out of hand. However, the boys are another story. Boys always act dumb around fire. One time, when we were in the woods, a boy who had been playing with the fire had lit a stick and was walking around with it like a torch. Somehow, the stick or ember fell onto my school bag that was hung over my shoulder and caught fire. This also caught my jacket and hair and skirt on fire as well, and the backpack began to melt from the fire and drip onto my clothes. Everyone panicked, and by instinct I ran back to school, and running only made the fire worse. I was seen by an adult, a teacher I think, and I was put on the ground and the fire was put out. But a lot of damage had been done already. I was taken to the hospital and the school called my parents. I was burned from the top of my head to the top of my leg just above my knee. Much of my hair on one side of my head was burned away, but because hair burns quickly, there was little damage to my face. More like a bad sunburn, except from my neck and along my jawbone, where my jacket and backpack burned. My legs were mostly okay too, as the skirt I was wearing was wool and did not burn easily, and was away from my legs. My right arm and body were not as well off. Where the jacket was and where the backpack was had burned the most and had melted like hot plastic because there was synthetic material. I was in a hospital for many weeks and had many surgeries over the span of my life to help the skin grow and to graft skin from my legs onto parts of my chest and under the arm where the most damaged. If I wear jeans and a long-sleeve shirt, you cannot tell that I have any scars, other than the line of scars that go up my neck on one side. Many times I've hidden the scars with makeup. I went to a GP in agonizing pain. I vomited around 20 to 30 times consecutively on their restroom floor. I was told it was a UTI. I recovered a little. The next day I was in more pain, and after seeing a couple doctors, I was rushed to the hospital for an emergency operation on a testicular torsion. I ended up losing a testicle. Spent the night there before returning home. 1 day later, I met the love of my life and never looked back since. But that 2 days of pain was something nobody should have had to gone through. I put my dad out of his misery when he was on his deathbed. I overdosed him with his painkillers and he died an hour later. I was co-convicted of manslaughter with diminished responsibilities when I was 16. Someone in the comments asks what happens, and the person said it was quite high profile at the time, in all the main newspapers, so I'll change a few details, but I'll give you the basics. A mutual friend of mine and my co-conspirator attacked my friend's young sister. We learnt about it later in the day after it happened. We went to his home, argued with him, and then struck him once with the flat edge of a hammer. He died 3 to 4 days after being put in a drug-induced coma. We were both arrested on murder and kept on bail for a year, while CPS made their case. As we were both from decent homes with no previous or lawyer argued, anyone would do the same given the situation, so murder became manslaughter eventually. I was sentenced to 3 years, did 18 months, and my friend got 5 years and served 3. Although I never hit him, they argued I went along with it willingly, knowing that violence was probably going to happen. And that's why I got time too, even though I technically didn't touch him. I guess it can be unsettling, but I was what you'd call passively not wanting to live when I was age 9 to age 25. It took me attending the funeral of one of my juniors from a volunteer gig to get past it. Turns out his two brothers have the same name as my brother, and that was surreal enough that I made time to reassess myself. I'm doing much better now, but there are a lot of things I missed out on because I kept a good distance with interpersonal relationships because I didn't know I would finally just do when I decided I was done. That's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment down below. I will see you next time. Hasta la pasta.